Hello, and welcome to this week's video on Hatha Yoga. Today we'll be taking a closer look at pandiculation and then a subset of that, yawning, and integrating those two into our practice. So to start with, pandiculation, pan, global, and then diculation, articulation, to articulate. So pan is kind of a global movement. So that term comes from the late early 1800s, from a doctor working out of Holland. And he was studying the way small children stretch when they wake up in bed, the way animals stretch when they wake up from a nap, or any time they're making that transition. And he coined that term pandiculation. So there are a few key components that define a pandiculation. One is there's a expansive element. Another is there's a contractive element. There is often an association with the breath. The breath plays a role in some of the pandiculations. And then for me, the most significant is that it is an emergent phenomenon. It isn't something you think your way through. It's something that bubbles up from a deep place and expresses itself through you. So with pandiculation, it's more about getting out of the way, removing obstacles, although you can influence a pandiculation the same way that you can surf a wave. So let's take a closer look now at pandiculation. And I think the final component that we should address is that, in my opinion, it is very much a fascial phenomenon coming out of the fascia, the connective tissue. So, in the workshop on pranayama, workshop number 7, we addressed yawning and the different chemicals, including nitric oxide that's released when we yawn. Nitric oxide opens up capillary beds. The capillary beds flood the tissues with fluid. And then, if we pandiculate, if we move, we help to move that fluid into the fascia. As fascia becomes hydrated, it becomes slippery, elastic, all the properties we need and want from our fascia. When fascia becomes dehydrated, it becomes stiff, rigid, gluey, it starts sticking, it gets adhesions, and we lose our freedom of movement and mobility. The fascia becomes unhealthy. Not only that, the fascia is embedded with nerves. There's a higher density of nerve sensors in the fascia than almost anywhere else in the body. So as we lose our movement, as the fascia becomes bound up in gluey and stops moving freely, we use one of our major senses of proprioception. We no longer feel where we are in space and in our bodies. So let's start with a variety of different types of pandiculation. So the first one we'll do, I think of it as being a lazy or lyrical pandiculation. And here the emphasis is on relaxation. It's kind of a very lazy feel. Take your arms out, point your fingers behind you. Now first we want to become conscious of what it feels like when we stretch fascia. So take your heels and reach away and back, and your chest forward slightly. Now as you push out through the heel of your hand and take the arms back and the chest forward, you're looking for a kind of a tingling sensation somewhere in the arms or chest, kind of a light electrical flittering tingling sensation. Now if you back off even slightly, the sensation should drop away very quickly, and if you push just a little deeper, it should increase. So a small adjustment in movement can create very radical shifts in the quality of sensation. That's another way we know we're working at a fascial level. So now once you've felt that sense of that kind of tingling, which doesn't feel like stretching a muscle. When you stretch the muscles, it's a very large movements create more subtle sensations, and the sensations are deep, not on the surface, not electrical, kind of a deeper, warmer sensation. So Let's see now if we can find the fascial net, but in a lazy way. Now the way I do this is I take the muscles and I drop them. I drop the muscles. Another way to think about that is let your arm get heavy. Let all the muscles in your arm hang. And this would be the equivalent to someone laying down in a hammock. The hammock stretches. So the fascia net is tight because I'm expanding, but the muscles are dropping into that fascial net, and that creates a stretch in the net. Not everyone's able to find this initially. Some people it takes a few weeks before they really begin to tune into this. Some of you may already be feeling it though. Let the muscles get heavy, float the bones, drop the muscles, and then, almost as an afterthought, expand. Now if you expand too much, the muscles will tighten and you lose the effect. So our primary quality is laziness. The expansion is secondary. Now once you can feel a delicate little tingling, if it's burning, back off. But if it's just a light tingling, then begin to experiment with moving that through the body. By adjusting your elbow, your shoulder blade, your wrist, your fingers, you can begin to move and change the quality of that sensation. Second side. Float the arm, drop the muscles, float the bones, expand without losing that lazy feeling in the arms. And then once you find a delicate tingling sensation, just begin to move that through the body. Now for some of you, this is not going to make any sense. You aren't going to be feeling anything. Don't worry. We're going to be moving on in a minute, and the rest of the class should be accessible to you even if you can't create this. And then float the arms down, roll out the shoulders. Feel the shoulder blades moving around and coming back to center. So you already know how to pandiculate. You do it quite often, not as much as perhaps you should, but even so we all pandiculate occasionally, and the pandiculation that's most common is the basic human yawn. So when I yawn, I'm satisfying 4 of the qualities of a pandiculation. My mouth is expanding, my throat tightens, the fascia through the throat is stretched a little bit as the muscles tighten, creating sensation in this area here. I breathe. And then the other quality is that it's an emergent phenomenon. You can't think your way through a yawn. You have to get out of the way. You can trigger it, you can ride it, you can surf on the yawn, but you are no more in control of the yawn than the surfer is in control of the wave. All he can control is how he surfs on the wave. So yawning is the simplest, smallest pandiculation, and we have learned how to hide it, how to muffle it, and how to reduce it just down to our face. So we're going to be trying to see if we can unpack that yawn and bring it out through our whole body. But the most important area is the throat and the breath, and to a slightly lesser degree the tongue. So we're going to focus on that to start with, and then we'll expand it into our yoga practice. So let's start with the breath. Biggest mistake people make is breathing in too much too quickly. If you remember from the second workshop on pranayama, the complete back breath, that's a wonderful way to lead into a yawn. If not, all you need to really think about is to hold the chest in reserve, and you breathe into the chest at the very end of the inhale, not the beginning. Okay? So breathe into the upper back, mid back, low back, belly, and then continue breathing in ribs, chest, shoulders. So a complete breath. And then breathe out. Now quite often a complete breath doesn't trigger a yawn. And one of the reasons is that we are breathing too quickly. Okay? A yawn is very lazy. It takes time to emerge. So the first thing you need to learn how to do when you're ready to trigger a yawn just with your breathing is you slow down the inhale, but not too much. And you might even pause Breathe in a little bit, pause, breathe in a little bit, pause. You want to make sure you're still comfortable, that the inhalation is, you aren't fighting it, you're just resisting it 1%. Imagine if I put a 1 pound weight on my ankles and then took a walk. Okay? The weight would resist the walking, but not that much. I'd still be able to walk freely. I would just have a little extra weight on the ankles. So as I breathe in, I just weight the inhale slightly, and if I get too far ahead of the urge to breathe in, I wait, and the urge catches up with me. So this is my breath, this is the urge. I breathe out, I wait, and when I feel the urge to breathe, I breathe in with it, and if I get too far ahead, I wait for the urge, and when it catches up with me, I continue breathing in. Okay? Watch. I breathe out, breathe in. And I'm looking for that yawn to take over, and as it starts to take over, my role is to get out of the way, okay? To allow the yawn to move through the body. Okay? So give that a try. Breathe in, breathe out, float, wait for the urge to breathe in slowly. If you need to pause and wait for the urge, do so. When you're about 3/4 of the way through the inhale, start opening up the mouth. Finish breathing up into the chest and shoulders. And release. Okay, so that's one component. For some, that's all they need in order to initiate the yawn. Most people, though, that's not enough to trigger a yawn. So now we're going to look at the most powerful trigger, and that is tightening the fascia, the connective tissue through the throat. The primary way that you've been doing this is by tightening the throat muscles. To do this, you're going to open your mouth, and then you're going to take your bottom lip down. If you take the center down, you'll feel a sensation in the throat. If you take the corners down, you'll feel that sensation widen. So tighten the throat, and then try and move the sensation around. Spread it out, bring it into the center, spread it out by working your mouth. And then move your jaw up and down a little bit as you're doing this. And that'll also change the intensity and move the stretch. So another quality to a pandiculation that I didn't mention is it's a wave. It's not static, it's a movement. Okay? Same with yawning. You can't freeze a yawn. You can't flash freeze it. The yawn is a wave, and you have to allow that wave to roll through the body. So as I create some sensation in the fascia, in this case the throat, I have to keep that sensation moving, slowly maybe, lazily maybe, but it has to move. Okay? Put those two together. Breathe in, breathe out, wait for the urge, breathe in with the urge to breathe in, and then as you start to reach the top, open the mouth, tighten the throat, and see if you could use that to trigger a nice yawn. Now the component most of us neglect is the tongue. Tighten the throat, open the mouth, pull the bottom lip down, tighten the throat, and then take the back of your tongue, not the tip, but the back, and lift the back of your tongue up and move it forward or backward a little bit, not vigorously, just enough to make these sensations more interesting. So yawning is really about the health of the root of the tongue and the throat. Two very important areas of our body that are much neglected. Yawning is nature's way of keeping these areas healthy. Okay? So, try it all together now. Breathe in, breathe out. Float. Wait. On the urge, start breathing in slowly. Don't get ahead of the urge. Open the mouth, tighten the throat, and then ever so slightly play with your tongue just a little bit. Now, at first, thinking too much is going to interfere with the yawn, so feel free just when you yawn to let it be a yawn, but over time you can become more effective and turn a mediocre yawn into a spectacular yawn by learning how to work with the throat, the lips, and especially the tongue without thinking. The thinking gets in the way. The trick is to do it without the thinking. We're going to come back to this in a few minutes. For the rest of the class, anytime you get the urge to yawn, I want you to let that be front and center. Yawn, do whatever you need to for the yawn to be good, and then when you're finished you can resume whatever it is you were doing. Okay? For now though, let's come into a spinal twist, starting with the right shoulder. Lift the shoulder, draw the shoulder blade around and down. Cross the left hand over. Lift, expand, rotate. Take a breath or two. Coming back to center. Lifting, rolling around to the second side. Take a breath or two. Coming back to center, circling with the ribs, reversing directions, rolling out the shoulders. So, stretching the fascia in the throat is the most common way of triggering a yawn. But we can also trigger a yawn with creating sensation in the fascia anywhere in the body. Some areas are more effective than others, but anywhere can access this and flip this switch, initiate this yawn. So now let's use our spinal twist. So as you come into it, we're going to make it a fascial twist. We do that by expanding, lifting, expanding, and then turning just slightly and then expanding a little bit. And then if you remember how you created sensation in your arm, see if you can feel that same quality. Delicate sensation. So I'm no longer trying to really move into a big twist. I'm just twisting slightly, and then I breathe in slowly. And as you're yawning, use your shoulder blades and your ribs to participate in the yawn. Coming back to center. So what is one of the biggest differences between a 40-year-old at a business meeting yawning, muffling it, trying to suppress it, if it gets away from them, hiding it, embarrassed by it, versus a 5-year-old waking up in bed on a summer vacation and yawning? Okay? So children know to use their whole bodies when they yawn, and that's what we're trying to do, is take this yawn that's been compressed down to just the mouth and the throat and bring it out into the fingertips, into the toes. Okay? Take your left shoulder, lift, draw the shoulder blade around and down, lift the chest, rotate, ease up on the rotation slightly, so you still feel the rotation but at just a subtle level, and then expand, and then play with your shoulder blades and your collarbones and your ribs, and you're playing to try and create a delicate, subtle fascial sensation, electrical. Then combine that with the breath and tightening the throat. And coming back to center, circling and reversing and rolling out the shoulders. Cat-cow. Coming onto your hands and knees. On your exhale, tuck the tailbone, hollow the abdomen, expand the back, tuck your chin, push the hands forward slightly, don't move them, just push, and finish exhaling. Lift the tailbone, lower the belly, open the chest, draw the shoulders back, look up, finish your inhale. One more time. Start with the hips, finish with the head, exhaling, and then inhaling. Now come back to center. Now try to do the same movement, but try to do it in order to trigger a yawn. And back to center. Now, improvising with cat-cow. Take one hand, move it off your mat, and just begin to move in lateral movements as well as vertical and horizontal, rolling the shoulder blades. Now, as you're doing that, minimize the movements, slow the movements down, make them a little smaller, and maximize sensation. Can you move in a way that you get healthy, pleasant sensations with slower, more subtle movements? And then as you're doing this, look for the opportunity to yawn. Don't rush it, but don't suppress it. Remember, yawning is an emergent phenomenon, so is pandiculation. So the key is to ride the wave. The movement comes from the animal body, not from the intellect. 2 or 3 more breaths. Couple of regular cat-cows. And back to center. Tuck your toes under. Walk your hands in close to your knees. Lift the knees off the ground. Lift your hips. Walk your hands into your feet. Standing forward bend. Take a few breaths here. Now, from the forward bend, knees are bent slightly. The tailbone is lifting. If you have any back issues or tight hamstrings, place your hands on your thighs, come up a little higher until you're comfortable. If it feels better to hang into the stretch, that's fine. Keep the left knee bent and straighten the right leg, not all the way, just enough to get a stretch. Make sure it's healthy, pleasant, subtle, not intense. And then switch sides. Bend that knee and straighten the opposite leg. Again, trying to create healthy, pleasant sensations, not trying to strain. Don't measure progress by how far you move into a pose. Measure progress by how the body's responding to the pose. Take a breath or two. And then come back to center. Take another breath or two, lifting the tailbone, sinking the belly, rotating the pelvis. And when you're ready, roll up, letting the knees buckle, stacking the vertebrae, coming up to Tadasana. Feet hip width, spread the toes wide. Outer edges of the feet are parallel. The arches are activated. Draw the abdomen back, lift the chest up, draw the shoulders back, broaden through the shoulder girdle. So now we're going to explore pandiculation in a variety of different ways. We're going to come back to that lazy pandiculation that we started with when we were sitting on the floor. Take your arms out, drop the muscles, float the bones, and then expand, but don't expand too much or you stiffen. Keep the laziness as you expand. Now, begin to use your whole body. Lift one heel, move your hip round or open. Maybe even yawning if you have the opportunity. Very lazy quality. You're looking for kind of an excitement of the endocrine system and the nervous system, tingling, electrical, pleasurable. That same quality of waking up and stretching lazily in bed without any effort. Take a few more breaths. And and release. Now remember the sensation, moving sensation through the fascia is one of the ways to trigger a yawn. So this time, as we take the arms out, we're going to keep the laziness, but we're going to add a little shimmy. And you're just trying to get the muscles to wobble like jello. So put that together now. First, float the arms, begin to pendiculate lazily. Add a little occasional little shimmy. Focus on sensation. You're trying to create delicate, pleasant, interesting sensations. Move them through the body like a wave. And then when you feel like it, try the slow breath and then tightening the throat. And yawning. After you've had a good yawn, you'll know your eyes start to get more fluid. You may even start feeling tears running down your face, and your mouth should begin to salivate a little. I have several students that used to have dry eye, and now instead of taking medication, they yawn. Anytime they feel their eyes get dry, they yawn 2 or 3 times. And same with salivation. May not work for everybody, but for some people, it can get them off of the drugs that they're using. Now, we're going to move the pandiculation over a little bit. So we've been emphasizing kind of a laziness, heaviness. So now we're going to think about expansion and contraction. So expansion, we reach out, and contraction, we tighten. So first, let's see how we can use opposite muscles to create the same movement. First, I want you to tighten the front of your body as if you were trying to hug a big tree. Try to squeeze the tree. Now as you do that, notice that your back expands. Shake out. Now this time, instead of trying to hug a tree, imagine that you're trying to envelop a tree without hugging it, without touching it. You're trying to expand, to wrap around the tree without squeezing the tree. Emphasize expansion as opposed to contraction. And notice how the body assumes a very similar position, but it does so in a completely different way with different sensations. Okay? Now try both. Expand and contract. Okay? That's a pandiculation. Now if you get the balance just right, it starts to feel organic. It starts to feel pleasant. Okay? Then you take that with you into a little movement. Shake out. Now same thing going back. Emphasize contracting the muscles in the back of your body. Pull the shoulders back and down. Tighten up everything in the back of your body. Shake out. Now this time emphasize expand the front of your body. Shake out. And of course pandiculation is both simultaneously. Start with expansion and then add a little contraction. So now we'll combine both. We expand through the front. We contract the back muscles a little bit. And then we lift one heel, move an elbow, begin to move the sensation like a wave through the body. And then switch over and expand the back, contract the front, and then expand the front, contract the back. And then, without thinking, begin to move and roll, and roll out the shoulders a little bit. Shake out. So we've got a spectrum here between the expansion and the contraction. So at one end we have a more expansion, less contraction. Try that. So focus 90% on expansion, but not struggling. Just lazily but firmly expand the front of your body, and then 10% contraction in the back. Notice how that feels. Move that around a little bit. Shake out. Now this time go 50-50. 50% expansion, 50% contraction, and here you'll notice your whole body gets a little stiffer. And now move. Shake out. Now emphasize the contraction without losing the expansion. So expand and then contract a little bit more, but even as you're contracting, a little bit of expansion. And then pendiculate, keeping that ratio. And shake out. So I'm going to model real quickly. This is an emphasis on expansion. This is about 50-50. And this is an emphasis on contraction. Okay, more like a bear. Okay, and shake out. Roll out your shoulders. Good. Now, play with all of those without thinking so much. Moving the way a cat moves when it wakes up from a nap. Fascia loves variety and complexity and novelty. It likes sensations that flow through the body. Now, every time you yawn, you're releasing nitric oxide. The nitric oxide is opening up the capillary beds. The fascia is being flooded with fluid, as are the muscles and tissues. And then you combine that with the movements, these organic movements that are instinctive in all animals, have been repressed in humans to the point that we may have even forgotten how to move. But that information is still accessible to us. We just have to create the space and time to practice a little bit until we reawaken these urges of movement. Now then, a Yoga Sun Salutation, feet a little closer. Remember, as we're going through our practice, anytime you have the potential to yawn, let that take front center. Float the arms overhead on the inhale. Reach your hips back and either drop your hands to your thighs, or if your back is healthy and your hamstrings are long, release all the way down. As you roll up, buckle the knees. Not too soon. Wait for the wrists to get even with the kneecaps and then buckle the knees. Stack the vertebrae. Roll up. Now with your breath. On the exhale, release into your forward bend. Roll up, buckle the knees, float the arms overhead as you breathe in. Couple more repetitions. On your next overhead stretch, hold. Lift the left heel, flare the right ribs. Lift the right heel, flare the left ribs. Come back to center. Now try to do the same thing, but in order to initiate a yawn. So make it more lazy. And then combine it with the inhale. And switch sides. And come back to center. So we can add one more thing to our pendiculation. And this is combining pendiculation with dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching is where we use momentum, we bounce, but we bounce into a stretch that is subtle and pleasant, not a big bounce into discomfort. If you do that, the muscles will tighten in a protective reflex. If you do a little delicate bounce though, it can be a very nice effect. So watch. And then I just do a little delicate bounce. And sometimes that can be used to trigger a yawn. Try that. Lift the left heel, flare the right ribs, and then bounce in order to create a yawn. And then switching sides. And then front and back. Take your shoulders back and your chest forward. And then swing the arms forward and the chest back. Now, pendiculate, stiffen slightly, and then bounce as you're pendiculating. Focus on sensation. You're trying to combine these ingredients to make a healthy, pleasant sensation that will trigger yawning. Coming back to center. Coming up to the front of your mat, full 12-step sun salutation. Stand with your feet together. Float the arms down and out and then overhead. Lift the heart, hollow the inner armpits. Start your exhale by reaching the hips back. Placing your fingertips on the floor even with your big toes. Take your right foot back into a big lunge. Then step the left foot back into plank. Try to keep your elbows tucked in as you bend the elbows. Keep them close to the rib cage as you come down. Use your arms to pull the ribs through so that you lengthen the waist. Roll the shoulders back and take a breath or two in cobra. Press the tops of the feet into the floor, roll the shoulders back, reach the chest forward. One more breath, trying to feel the muscles in the back of the body engaging in a way that feels good to you. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, reach your hips back, downward facing dog. Three or four breaths here. Breathe deep and steady. Couple more breaths. On the next transition, if you struggle with this movement, start off by putting your left knee on the floor. Lift the right hand, step the foot all the way up. Big lunge. Breathe in. Step your left foot up into a forward bend on the exhale. Overhead stretch as you breathe in. Back to prayer. Sweep up on the inhale. Swan dive. On the exhale, left foot leading, lunging, holding your breath for a moment in plank, and on the exhale, press down. Pull the ribs away from the pelvis, roll the shoulders back, press the feet down. Lengthen the back of the neck. Breathe into this position. One more breath. Tuck the toes under. Press back into downward facing dog. Reach the heels towards the ground. Lift the tailbone towards the ceiling. Lengthen the spine. Reach through the sit bones. Pull the chest through towards your feet. Float the inner armpits away from your feet. Broaden the upper back.
Spiral the arms if you know how. Spiral the legs if you know how. 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. Set the right knee down, lift the left hand, step through, big lunge, breathe in. Step the right foot up, exhale. Overhead stretch, breathe in. Back to prayer. Trikonasana. Step your feet wide. Make sure you still have a little play in the hips. Turn the left foot out 90 degrees. Turn the right foot in 60 degrees. Take your hips, draw your hips to the right. Tilt the pelvis. Lengthen the low rib cage. Hand on thigh, shin, or the floor. Now, one of the things you'll discover very quickly is that when we are working hard, when we're stretching hard or we're engaging tightening muscles firmly, it suppresses the urge to yawn, which is okay. But if your goal is to yawn, come up a little bit. Not all the way. Come up where you're still feeling the sensations in the poses, but 90% less. And then play a little bit. And within the pose, still feeling all the qualities of the pose, the stretching, the engagement, the firmness. See if you can do the pose in such a way that your body's able to yawn in the pose itself. Take a breath or two. Take everything you know about the pose, spiraling the legs, opening the groin, controlling the pelvis, the shoulder blades, the chest, the neck. And without losing any of those attributes, just back off slightly without losing them until you feel the freedom to yawn. Then go just a little deeper. Take another breath or two. Switching sides. Come up, turn the left foot out, turn the right foot in. Draw your hips to the left. Tilt the pelvis. Spiral the right leg, open the groin, keep the lower ribs long. Draw the shoulder blades together and down the back of the neck long. Come up just a little bit without losing any of those actions. Let go of 90% of the effort, 90% of the sensation and action without losing that last 10%. And then use what you've learned about yawning with the slow inhale, tightening of the throat, the tongue. And come back up. Let's go back to the first side. Turn the left foot out, right foot in. And this time, not just yawning, but pandiculating within the pose. Take your hips to the right, tilt the pelvis. Now, it's impossible to pandiculate if you're in at your edge, but if you back out 90%, and then just kind of explore. Try not to think so much. Feel your way around. The more you're able to feel the fascia through the body, the more rewarding your practice becomes. 2 or 3 more breaths. Remember, fascia likes and responds well to waves, so don't become rigid. When you're ready, come up, turn your feet pigeon-toed,
Release into a forward bend.
Take a breath or two.
Come back up.
And second side. Turn the right foot out, turn the left foot in. Shift your hips to the left, tilt the pelvis. Create a delicate, pleasant action. And then remember the dynamic. So pandiculate, but add a little bounce. Oh, and rolling, maybe a little shimmy. Fashio really likes a little delicate shake. Take a breath or two. And come back up. Release into a forward bend. 2 or 3 breaths. Stretch the exhale. Step your feet together. Take another breath, leaning into a little deeper stretch as your legs begin to warm up a little bit. And coming back up to Tadasana. Now we'll try Trikonasana one more time. This time we'll explore the idea of expansion and contraction and the ratio between those two actions. Stepping your feet wide. Turn the left foot out, right foot in. Draw your hips to the right. Tilt the pelvis. Now put 90% of your attention, let's go 60-40. 60% contraction, 40% expansion. So stiffen up and expand. Notice how that feels. Now reverse it. Put 60% expansion, 40% contraction. And then 70-30 or 20-80 or 80-20. And then try to find that right balance point, where it feels good, where you're getting just the right balance point, which will be different in 5 minutes or in 2 weeks. Every day is different. Take a breath or two. Switch sides. Last repetition. Turn the right foot out, left foot in. Draw your hips to the left. Come into a very delicate Trikonasana. And then 60-40, 60 stiffening, contracting, 40% expanding. Use that in the way you know to do the pose. In the spiraling of the legs, the opening of the hips, the lengthening of the spine, the shoulder blades. Now reverse it. 60% expansion, 40% contraction. May not look different to an observer, but it should feel different to you. Now, on your own, kind of experiment. Try not to think so much. Try to use this recipe without thinking to create just the right balance, where the pose feels right. 2 or 3 breaths. When you're finished, forward bend. Feet wide, turn pigeon toed. Hang into your forward bend, sway a little left, a little right. Take a breath or two.
Coming down onto our backs and working with a back roll. If you have your own roller, you can use that. If not, you can take a blanket and then roll the blanket up. If you're using a blanket, you can unroll it enough to make it comfortable, roll it up to make it bigger. And we'll start with the roller underneath the shoulders, with the arms and head extended out over the roller. You want to be able to relax into this position. If it's too intense, put something under your head or support your head, or cross your arms if your shoulders are bothering you. Whatever you need to do to make this comfortable. The key here is to be able to relax, not to tense up. Every 5 or 10 breaths, you're going to adjust by lifting your hips, pushing yourself over the roller an inch, 1 or 2 vertebrae, and then set the hips down and relax into the new position. The size of roller that felt good in one area of your back may be a little too easy or too intense as you move down to a new area. So if you need to, adjust the size of your roller. We'll go for 3 more minutes. Breathe deep. Use your exhale, stretching the exhale into a sigh. Slowly working your way down the length of your spine, 1 vertebra at a time. Go for 2 more minutes. Ten or 15 more breaths. If you need more time with the back roll, feel free to pause the video until you're ready to resume. For those of you that are ready though, lift your hips, remove the roller, hug your knees into your chest, rock side to side. We'll do 1 cobra, 1 down dog, and then finish with pigeon pose and a spinal twist. Coming onto your stomach. Hands well behind the shoulders. Press the tops of the feet into the floor until the knees start to lift. Shrug your shoulders, lift the shoulders, roll the shoulder blades together and down the back, reach the chest forward. Now, see if you can ease up without coming all the way out of the pose until you still feel the action, but 90% less than what you plan to do in a few moments. And then see if in this position you can yawn. And then come down enough that you can yawn. Then once you've yawned, then begin
To work a little bit more firmly, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 breaths. So our last cobra, our last work for the back muscles. Take a breath or two. Downward facing dog. Tuck the toes, lift the knees, reach the hips back, lift the tailbone up, pull the chest through towards your feet, float the shoulder blades away. Now, ease up on the pose and see if you can yawn. And then, as you're finishing the yawn, flow into the pose more deeply. 5 or 10 breaths. This is our last work for today. Don't hold anything in reserve. Try to work through any stale energy. Burn off that stale energy. 3 or 4 or 5 more breaths. When you're ready to start slowing down, bring your right knee forward, slide your left leg back. Create a delicate stretch in the right outer thigh, hip, or buttocks. Experiment, shifting a little left, a little right, forward or backward, coming up. Repositioning your back leg until you find a comfortable position that you can relax into. And then stretch your exhale. Breathing into this pose. 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 more breaths. Couple more breaths on the first side. Pushing back into downward facing dog. Take a breath or two. Leading with the left leg, stepping through. And then take a few moments adjusting, experimenting, repositioning. Don't just settle into the first position. See if you can improve on that. And when you found the safest, healthiest, most pleasant sensations, then begin to relax into that more deeply, stretching the exhale. Five or 6 or 7 more breaths. Take a breath or two. Coming on to your back for spinal twist. Bring your right knee or both knees to your chest, and then roll to your left. Hold the knee or both knees with your left hand. Reach away and then up with the right arm, and then rotating into a gentle twist. Back off from the twist a little bit, and then yawn with your whole body. Stiffen and expand your core
and your legs and your shoulder blades. Pandiculate. And use that pandiculation to trigger a yawn. And then relax into the twist. Take a breath or two or three. And coming back to center. Bring your left knee or both knees to your chest. Roll to the right. Anchor the knee with your right hand. Take your left hand, reach away, reach up, reach out. Rotate into a twist. Ease up on the twist and pandiculate. Stiffen, expand, especially with your core and your shoulder blades. See if you can use those sensations, delicate, subtle sensations, moving through the body like a wave, and see if you can take that and use it to trigger a yawn by including your breath. Tightening the throat and the tongue. And then relaxing. Two or three more breaths. Hug both knees, rock side to side. And then coming down into Shavasana, extending the legs. Drawing the shoulder blades together and down. Lengthen the back of your neck away from the shoulder blades. Turn the palms up. Feet hip width or wider. And the wrists 8 or 10 inches from the hips or wider. Stretch your face, open the mouth, pull the lips into an O, move the teeth apart. And then tighten the throat and the tongue stiffening and yawning. And then relax. Bring your attention to the breath rising and falling. Stretching the exhalation. Relaxing the face, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the fingers. The feet, the ankles, the calves, the knees, the thighs, the hips. Low back, the belly, the kidneys, the ribs, the chest, the shoulders, the back of the neck, and soften the throat. the urge to yawn, notice it, and allow the yawn to move through the body. Don't resist or muffle or suppress. As we begin to come out of Shavasana, look for the first opportunity to yawn. Start with just the breath. Breathe into the back, into the belly. Slowly inhale down. Pause occasionally. And then tighten the throat. And then very lazily begin to move the arms and use the arms and the hips, stiffening, expanding, but lazily. Create a little sensation. Move the sensation through the fascia and combine that with the slow inhale. And then stiffen your body and expand. So a little bit more contraction, a little less expansion, and then stretch. Oh. And then stiffen up a little more. And then bring your knees to your chest. Roll to one side. Coming up into a comfortable seated position. And again, you may be able to see, but my eyes are very moist now, having yawned. And I can feel a sense of feeling connected in the moment. Yawning suppresses the flow of consciousness, the mind. When you're yawning, you'll notice that if you start thinking, it suppresses the yawn. So by becoming very good at yawning, you're also becoming very good at stopping that inner dialogue, shutting it down. And then when you finish yawning, the attention network kicks in and you're able to redirect your attention anywhere you choose to. So a yawn is an opportunity to choose a new path forward, to choose where you give your attention as you move forward in time. I hope that you enjoyed our practice today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. And personally, I usually yawn anywhere from 10 to 20 or 30 times a day. And I really recommend to you that you cultivate that, not just learning not to suppress the yawning, but actively encouraging your body to yawn. For me, this is one of the secrets to the fountain of youth. The yawning releases nitric oxide, hydrates the body, releases oxytocin, makes us feel connected to each other and to life and those around us, as well as releasing opiates and other chemicals associated with a sense of well-being. Thank you. Bring your hands together over your heart. Namaste.